our 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 power grid is designed for the worst case condition with some margin. Well, 99% of the time, we're nowhere near the worst case condition because the worst case condition is a few days in the winter, a few days in the summer, and extreme weather. Most of the time, we're nowhere near the worst case condition, and we're probably running around, call it 60% of peak. And so 99% of the time, our power grid has excess power and they're just sitting idle. But they have to be there sitting idle because just in case, when the time comes, hospitals have to be powered and, infrastructure has to be powered and airports have to run and so on and so forth. And so the question that I have is whether we could go and help them understand and create contractual agreements and design computer architecture systems, data centers, such that when they need the maximum power for infrastructure in society, that the data centers would get less. And during that time, we either have our backup generators for that little part of it, or we just have our computers shift the workload somewhere else, or we have the computers just run slower. We could degrade our performance, reduce our power consumption, and provide for a slightly longer latency response, when somebody asks for an answer. And so I think that way of using computers, of building data centers, instead of expecting 100% uptime and these contracts that are really, really quite rigorous, it's putting a lot of pressure on the grid to be able to, now they're going to have to increase from their maximum.
Yeah, that's not talked about enough.
End customer puts requirements on the data centers that they can never not be available. Okay, so that the end customer expects perfection. Now, in order to deliver that perfection, you need a combination of backup generators and your grid power supplier to deliver on perfection. And so I think the first thing is just make sure that all of the customers, the CEOs of the customers, realize what they're asking for. Now, the second thing is we have to build data centers that gracefully degrade. And so if the utility, if the grid tells us, listen, we're going to have to back you down to about 80%, we're going to say that's no problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to move our workload around. We're going to make sure that data is never lost, but we can reduce the computing rate and use less energy. The quality of service degrades a little bit. For the critical workloads, I shift that somewhere else right away so I don't have that problem. And so
how difficult of an engineering problem is that, the smart dynamic allocation of power in the data center?